People today like to complain that we've become too sensitive to take an insult. I disagree. I think we've just gotten lazy. Today, if someone gets mad at you, they yell or they type in all capital letters on the internet. It's loud, it's messy, and frankly, it lacks craftsmanship. Welcome back to the Silver Sage. Tonight, we are dusting off the lost art of elegant destruction. We're looking at historical minds who didn't use sledgehammers. They used scalpels. And I've saved a line from Mark Twain for the end that perfectly diagnoses Washington, D.C., written over a century ago. He may look like an idiot and talk like an idiot, but don't let that fool you. He really is an idiot. It's the fake out that makes it art. He offers you a lifeline, don't let that fool you. And then he just takes it right back. You can't say things like this in a modern corporate meeting without a visit to human resources. But back then, it was just called Tuesday. Of course, sometimes you don't want to be funny. Sometimes you just want to let someone know that their very presence is lowering your quality of life. If you want to do that with absolute class, you have to go back to the year 1609. The English language was never sharper than when it was wielded by William Shakespeare. More of your conversation would infect my brain. Just imagine the sheer dignity of looking a person in the eye and informing them that their small talk is a biohazard. He didn't tell the man to be quiet. He diagnosed him as an intellectual pathogen. If you tried that at Thanksgiving dinner, your in-laws wouldn't even know how to respond. They'd probably just pass the gravy in stunned silence. Now, the highest level of this forbidden wit is the compliment rap. This is an insult so deeply buried in polite manners that the victim might actually say, "Thank you," before the realization hits them. The undisputed heavyweight champion of this was Oscar Wilde. He has no enemies, but is intensely disliked by his friends. That is devastating. It starts out so nice. He has no enemies. You think, what a lovely fellow. And then the trap snaps shut. Wilde understood that strangers disliking you is just life. But to have a flawless record of alienating the people who actually know you, that requires dedication. This brand of forced politeness was practically a weapon of statecraft in Britain. Winston Churchill used it constantly. When you're running a country, you can't just throw a tantrum. You have to destroy your rivals while sounding perfectly pleasant. Listen to how he allegedly described his political opponent, Clement Attlee. A modest little person with much to be modest about. Much to be modest about. It's so polite, you could put it on a greeting card. But translated from British, he just called the man utterly useless. You can't put a filter on that kind of wit. It just cuts straight to the bone. Which brings us to the natural habitat of the idiot, politics. Now, I promised you earlier that we'd get to Mark Twain. But before we cross the Atlantic, let's hear from the playwright George Bernard Shaw. He observed something about human nature and ambition that is, let's say, painfully accurate regardless of what decade you're living in. He knows nothing and thinks he knows everything. That points clearly to a political career. You have to admire the efficiency. Shaw managed to offend every single elected official on Earth in exactly 18 words. It's a joke, of course. Mostly. But it sets the stage perfectly for the man who treated insulting the government as his personal hobby. Mark Twain didn't hide his insults in velvet. He just took logic, twisted it, and used it to point out the obvious. Over 140 years ago, he drafted a line that remains the absolute gold standard for dealing with the people in charge. Suppose you were an idiot, and suppose you were a member of Congress. But I repeat myself, it is the perfect punchline. Twain knew that the most devastating insults don't rely on curse words or screaming. They rely on drawing a conclusion that everyone else in the room is already thinking. If you tried to broadcast that today, half the country would demand an apology. Twain would probably just write them a letter, carefully explaining why they were wrong. We may live in an age of instant outrage and lost tempers, but there is a quiet, profound joy in remembering how the masters handled their business. They didn't get mad. They got clever. I've got a question for you tonight. Out of all the verbal scalpels we looked at today, from Shakespeare's infected brain to Mark Twain's Congress, which one do you secretly wish you could use at your next family gathering? Let me know down in the comments. Until next time, keep your wits sharp and your words elegant.